Hello, hi. Okay, in this video, we are looking at financial mathematics, starting with the introduction to this topic. We will go through this few paragraphs just so that we hit the ground running and we all understand this the same way. So, in any financial situation in the real world, the interest rate is the percentage charged or paid for the use of money. For instance, you use my 20 rand. When you bring it back as my 20 rand plus an extra 5 rand. So basically you bring it back as 25 rand. You see? So you have paid an extra 5 rand for using my 20 rand. So in a nutshell, the interest that you paid is 5 rand. And if we express that 5 rand as a percentage, then that is what they are referring to as an interest rate. Okay, and I'm not gonna try to do that here, but because it's a quick calculation, 5 divided by 20 equals to how much? Okay, I'm just gonna do that instead of write it in percentage. Okay, 5 divided by 20 is 25% usually. Yeah, it is 25%. So this 25 0.25, then you can convert it to percentage by multiplying this by 100 so that it comes 25%. So this is how interest rate is usually written. So if we were to agree that you need to pay me 25% interest rate for using my 20 rand, that means basically when you bring my 20 rand, it must come back as 25 rand, because we've agreed that you need to pay 25%. So 25% of 20 rand is equals to 5 rand, because you're basically saying 25 divided by 100 multiplied by 20, and that should give you 5 rand. Okay, I hope you understand how I made this quick calculation here, but that was just for explaining this first line. We still have a number of things to cover on this introduction, so let's get back into it. Okay, so basically it is charged, this interest rate, it is usually charged when money is being borrowed and paid when it is being loaned. The function of banks is to grant loans or hold the deposits, and banks, they convince people to make deposits by making payments to them or by paying them interest. Okay, they are paying depositors for the right to use their money in essence. So that small portion that the banks are paying you when you save money in their accounts, it's basically them saying, because we have given you something, we have all the rights now to use your money. And if they are making more, you can't come and complain, because you have given them your money and they are paying you for that. So they then use that money to grant loans. Okay, the interest rate for borrowers, they keep it as high as possible. It's higher than the interest rate for depositors. Yeah, you'll forgive me, I'm not really reading this, I'm just speaking into everything that I see. So the banks, they want to charge as much interest as possible on loans and pay as little as possible on deposits, so they can be more profitable. There are two main types of interest rates, okay, that you were introduced to in previous grades: simple and compound interest. Okay, so if the interest is calculated using only the original amount of money saved or borrowed, then it is called simple interest. Simple interest is used for short-term loans, hire purchase accounts, and investments. Okay, forgive me for just writing all over this, but make sure you make notes actually as you go along, so that you don't forget what we're discussing here. It will be very important in your understanding of financial mathematics going forward when we do examples. So there's also a way of calculating the interest. It could be calculated on the original sum plus the interest already, and at that point when we are trying to evaluate what the interest rate is or would be from the date we started with some investment or we had borrowed money. So that approach, if it is being deployed, then that interest which is going to be calculated will be called compound interest. Okay, I hope you understand that. So compound interest is used when there are long-term loans or investments. So normally with those long-term loans or investments, that's when they use compound interest. Saving money over a long-term period, 5 years or more, with a compound interest well above the inflation rate, it can help you with accumulating wealth. Okay, I think this is what I wanted to highlight. So for those who want to at some point walk in the footsteps of rich people, they need to understand this line of how it works. If you are saving money over a long period, 5 years or more, with a compound interest rate that is well above the inflation, that will help you to accumulate wealth. So basically you can see compound interest in a nutshell, it pumps the money up more than simple interest does in terms of gaining interest. Because when we're looking at the wealthy people, those are the people with a lot of money. You can use this analogy, but there's other examples that we're going to do where there's formulas and everything, where we explain in calculation to understand why compounding gives more money compared to simple. Okay, some they refer to it as the compounding power, but the interest is being calculated on the original sum plus the interest which is already earned. That's the bottom line about it. But when simple interest, if the interest has only been calculated on the original amount, then that does not, in a nutshell, increase the original amount by that much. It always increases by the original amount factor. Okay, compounding can be your friend if you are saving money over a long-term period. It can also be your worst enemy. Okay, just be on the lookout. It can also be your worst enemy if you are paying back a bank loan over a long-term period. Then to stay safe, avoid stress of finances, you need to avoid this enemy of paying banks over long-term periods, because it can actually be your worst enemy in life. Okay, thank you very much. That's basically what I wanted us to align on, set this thing as the basics of where we are headed to. Next, we'll be doing this example where you get to understand that if 5,000 Rand is invested in a bank, how do you calculate the accumulated amount after 3 years if the interest rate is 3.75% per annum simple interest or compound interest? So you get to see the difference in terms of those two methods as to how they actually work. Then we kickstart our journey of mathematics. Thank you very much.